Governor hits a little black boy. Then tries to bury the secret. Henry's hands trembled against the steering wheel. His mouth was dry, his heart beat a heavy drumbeat in his ears. I should go back, check if he's... Vincent cut him off, his voice sharp, laced with authority. Dead, Henry. Or close enough. Either way, you showing up there with your name, your face, your breath smelling like that, he gestured toward the empty bourbon glass holder in the dash, is suicide. Henry's jaw clenched. He's a child. And you're the governor. Governors don't go to prison for children who shouldn't be on the road in the first place. Vincent reached into his coat pocket, pulling out his phone. I'll make some calls. We'll handle this. But you need to get your story straight. Henry's voice cracked. My story? You were at the ball all night? You never left. You were never here. The ballroom shimmered with golden light, crystal chandeliers casting fractured rainbows over polished marble floors. Soft violins whispered above the clinking of glasses, and every laugh seemed rehearsed, perfectly in tune with the governor's carefully curated image. Governor Henry Whitmore stood at the head of the room, a glass of aged bourbon in one hand, his other resting possessively on his wife's back. He looked every inch the polished statesman, until you saw the slight glaze in his eyes. Henry, his wife, Eleanor, whispered through a tight smile, "You've had enough." He chuckled, his words slurring just enough for her to notice. "My dear, I've had just enough to make these dreadful speeches sound like poetry." But his attention drifted. Over her shoulder, his old friend, Vincent Ross, the oil tycoon with the wolfish grin, gave him a conspiratorial nod toward the grand doors. Eleanor's grip on his arm tightened. "Don't you dare, Henry. Not tonight. You promised." He slipped her hold with a practiced ease, leaning in to kiss her cheek before turning away. "Only a quick drive, my love. Clear the head." "Henry," she hissed, but her voice was swallowed by the laughter and music as he strode away. Outside, the rain had been falling for hours, slicking the streets into mirrors. The black sedan waited like a shadow, its engine purring impatiently. Vincent was already in the passenger seat, tossing an empty flask into the back. Finally, Vincent said with a smirk, "Let's see if the old man still got a taste for speed." Henry slid behind the wheel, the leather cold against his palms. The bourbon still burned in his veins, mixing with an almost boyish thrill. The wipers beat a frantic rhythm as he pressed the accelerator. The city lights blurred into smeared ribbons of gold and red. They laughed like reckless teenagers as the tires hissed over rain-slick asphalt. Vincent lit a cigarette, the ember glowing in the dim cabin light. "You know," Vincent said, exhaling smoke, "it's been years since you've driven like this. Feels good, doesn't it?" Henry grinned. "Feels like freedom." Half a mile ahead, a small figure stood under the choking rain, trying to cross the road. The boy couldn't have been more than 8, a too big yellow raincoat hanging off his narrow frame, water streaming off its torn hood. His shoes, scuffed and loose, splashed in shallow puddles as he darted from one side to the other, clutching a worn school bag. He looked left. He looked right. No one saw him. Not yet. The governor's sedan cut through the rain like a black bullet, the hum of the engine growing into a growl as Henry pressed harder on the gas. Vincent leaned back, the cigarette balanced between his fingers. "You've still got the touch, Henry," he said lazily. Henry smirked, eyes flicking between the slick road and the faint red glow of the speedometer needle creeping upward. The raincoat-wrapped figure in the distance took a hesitant step into the road. "Henry," Vincent said, sitting up a little straighter, "what's that?" Through the blur of rain-streaked glass, Henry caught sight of the boy. Just for a second. A flash of small limbs, yellow fabric clinging to skinny shoulders, a glint of terrified eyes in the headlights. Damn it, Henry's hand jerked the wheel. The tires shrieked against the wet asphalt, but the road was too slick, the speed too high. The sound came, sickening and soft at the same time, like a sack hitting the ground, followed by the scrape of something rolling across the road. The wipers kept moving, pushing rain aside like nothing had happened. For a moment, neither man spoke. The only sound was the harsh thud of Henry's pulse in his ears and the soft hiss of the rain. Vincent turned slowly, eyes wide but mouth already tightening into something calculated. "Henry," he didn't finish the sentence. Henry's hands gripped the wheel so tightly his knuckles went bone white. He glanced into the rearview mirror. The boy was lying still, the rain pooling around him, the yellow of his coat bleeding darker with each second. Vincent's voice was low, almost too calm. "We didn't see him. No one saw us. Keep driving." Henry's throat felt tight. "He's just a kid. Henry." Vincent's tone snapped like a whip. "If you stop, your career's over. Your name, your life, everything, gone. Keep driving." Henry stared at the road ahead, the rain blurring his vision. The smell of smoke from Vincent's cigarette mingled with the sharp, metallic scent creeping in through the air vents. The car rolled forward. The sedan moved like it was caught in a dream, slow in Henry's mind, but still eating up the wet road ahead. Each thump of the tires over a shallow puddle felt like it could be him under the wheels again. Henry's hands trembled against the steering wheel. His mouth was dry, his heart beat a heavy drumbeat in his ears. "I should go back," he muttered, his voice almost swallowed by the rain. "Check if he's—" Vincent cut him off, his voice sharp, laced with authority. "Dead, Henry. Or close enough. Either way, you showing up there with your name, your face, your breath smelling like that," he gestured toward the empty bourbon glass holder in the dash, "is suicide." Henry's jaw clenched. "He's a child." Vincent leaned closer, his eyes like cold steel in the dim cabin light. "And you're the governor. Governors don't go to prison for children who shouldn't be on the road in the first place." The windshield wipers scraped back and forth, in a mechanical rhythm that made Henry feel sick. In the rearview mirror, the yellow coat was gone now, swallowed by darkness and rain. He tried to picture the boy's face but couldn't. Just those eyes. Wide. Shining with the kind of fear you can't fake. Vincent reached into his coat pocket, pulling out his phone. "I'll make some calls. We'll handle this. But you need to get your story straight." Henry's voice cracked. "My story?" Vincent's expression didn't change. "You were at the ball all night? You never left. You were never here." The car's headlights cut through the rain, but every drop seemed to flash like an accusation. The governor drove on, but the road ahead didn't feel like it was leading him home anymore, it felt like it was carrying him somewhere much darker. By the time they reached the outskirts of the city, the rain had softened into a steady drizzle, but the tension inside the sedan was thick enough to choke on. Vincent had been on the phone for the last 10 minutes, his voice a low, precise whisper. No police report. I don't care how it's done, just make sure it disappears." "Yes. Tonight." Henry kept his eyes on the road, though it felt like the white lines were tilting beneath him. The image of the boy's small frame in the headlights refused to leave. Every time he blinked, he saw him again, the way the rain clung to that torn yellow hood, the glint of fear, and then, nothing. Vincent ended the call and slid the phone back into his coat. "It's handled." "The street cameras?" "Wiped." "The traffic light footage?" "Gone." The only witness that matters is sitting in this car, and that witness is keeping his damn mouth shut. Henry's grip on the wheel tightened until his wrists ached. "And what about him?" Vincent lit another cigarette, inhaling deeply before answering. "Nobody really cares about a little black kid. If he's dead, he'll be found in the morning by some passerby. It'll be called a tragic accident, maybe a hit and run, maybe something else. If he's alive," Vincent shrugged, blowing smoke toward the ceiling. "Well, let's hope for your sake he's not." Henry's stomach churned. The words, "for your sake," echoed in his mind like a curse. The car pulled into his gated estate minutes later. Security guards opened the iron gates without question, their faces unreadable behind the rain-smeared glass of the booth. Inside, the mansion glowed warm and inviting. Eleanor was still in her gown, seated on the velvet couch, a glass of champagne in her hand. She looked up, smiling faintly, until she saw Henry's face. "Henry? You're pale. What happened?" she asked, standing slowly. Henry froze in the doorway, his wet shoes leaving small, guilty puddles on the marble floor. His mouth opened, but Vincent's voice was already there, smooth as silk. "Governor wasn't feeling well at the ball. Little too much champagne," Vincent said easily. "I drove him back." Eleanor's worried expression softened into one of understanding. "Oh, Henry," she came to his side, touching his arm gently. "You should rest." Henry glanced at Vincent, whose eyes locked on his with a silent warning, "Not a word." He swallowed hard and forced a smile that felt like it might crack his skin. "Yes. I just need to lie down." But as he walked upstairs, the sound of rain against the window seemed louder than it should have been, like the boy was still out there, pounding to be let in. Morning came gray and heavy, the clouds still swollen from the night before. Henry woke with the taste of stale bourbon in his mouth and the sound of rain still clinging to his ears, even though the storm had passed. Downstairs, the television murmured softly from the governor's private study. Eleanor must have switched it on while sipping her morning tea. Henry paused halfway down the staircase when he caught a few words from the newscaster's voice. "Body of a young boy found on Westbridge Road early this morning." His stomach clenched. He stepped into the study, the warm scent of Eleanor's chamomile tea colliding with the cold knot in his gut. On the screen was a shaky phone video, yellow police tape fluttering in the breeze, the outline of a small body beneath a rain-damp sheet. Believed to be between 8 and 10 years old, the reporter continued. "Authorities say they are seeking information on a possible hit and run. No witnesses have come forward." No witnesses. Vincent had kept his word. Henry stood behind Eleanor's chair, his fingers gripping the leather backrest so tightly that his wedding band dug into his skin. Eleanor's voice was soft. God, his poor parents. She shook her head slowly. People drive like maniacs in this city. Henry felt the back of his neck prickle. The image of the boy's face was so clear now he could almost see it in the television's reflection. From the doorway, Vincent's voice slid into the room like smoke. Henry, he said casually, ignoring the news footage, we have a meeting in 20 minutes. Best get ready. Eleanor glanced over her shoulder. You're working today? Vincent answered for him. The governor's work never stops. Henry's throat was dry, but he forced out a nod. Right, of course. The drive to the capital was silent until they passed the edge of the district. Then Vincent spoke without looking at him. You saw the news, he said flatly. Henry's jaw tightened. I saw it. Vincent exhaled smoke out of the cracked window. This only goes away if you let it. No late-night confessions. No guilt trips. No loose ends. But Henry wasn't listening anymore. On the side of the road, past the guardrails, he saw a woman standing in the wet grass. Her hair clung to her face, her hands gripping the straps of a worn handbag. She was staring at the patch of asphalt where the rain had washed away everything but the truth. When their eyes met as the car passed, Henry felt something twist in his chest. Because he knew, without a word spoken, that she was looking for her son. Mara stood at the edge of the road, her shoes sinking into the softened earth, her knees trembling in the chill. The police had already come and gone, leaving nothing but a coil of yellow tape drifting in the breeze and a dark stain on the asphalt that the rain hadn't washed away. She clutched her son's school bag to her chest, the strap frayed, one zipper broken. It was still wet, the fabric cold against her skin. Inside, his notebooks were warped from the water, the ink bleeding into blurred lines. Ma'am, an officer had told her earlier, voice heavy with that practiced sympathy they learn for these moments, we'll do everything we can to find who did this. But Mara wasn't convinced. She knew this road. She knew the kind of people who drove here after hours, the rich men with their tinted windows, their expensive liquor, and their belief that rules were for other people. Now she stood alone, eyes scanning every passing car. Not for a license plate, not for a dented fender, but for a face. She didn't know who yet, but she would. Back in the governor's office. Henry sat behind his desk, staring at the stack of papers in front of him without reading a word. Outside the tall windows, the city moved like it always did, buses, horns, hurried footsteps, but it all felt distant. Vincent was pacing. The press will move on in a week, maybe less. Keep your head down, make a few public statements about road safety, shake some hands, cut a ribbon or two, and this will be a bad dream. Henry didn't look up. Her face, he murmured. Vincent stopped pacing. Whose face? The mother. She was there this morning. She looked at me. Vincent's tone hardened. She looked at the car. Not at you. Don't start inventing ghosts, Henry. The only danger here is if you let your guilt talk you into doing something stupid. Henry leaned back in his chair, but the leather felt suffocating. What if she doesn't stop looking? Vincent's expression turned cold. Then we make sure she finds nothing. Weeks passed, and for a while it seemed Vincent was right, the headlines shifted, the public outrage faded, and Henry smiled at ribbon cuttings as if nothing had happened. But the guilt clung to him like a second skin. What he didn't know was that Vincent had made a mistake. The traffic camera footage from a side street, one Vincent thought he'd had erased, still existed, quietly sitting in a forgotten municipal server. And in that grainy black and white video, the governor's sedan could be seen barreling through the intersection minutes before the boy was hit. Detective Renee Carter wasn't the kind of woman to let a case die. Sharp-eyed, relentless, and unafraid of pushing the wrong buttons, she'd been assigned the hit and run as a formality. The higher-ups thought it was a dead case. But after meeting Mara, seeing the way grief and quiet fury lived in her eyes, Renee decided she was going to find the truth, no matter whose toes she stepped on. Somebody did this, Renee told her one rainy afternoon, flipping her badge shut. And trust me, Amara, I will find them. Her digging stirred trouble fast. First, the footage from the side street. Then, a valet at the governor's estate who remembered wiping down a rain-slick black sedan the night of the accident. Then came the whispers, about Vincent's late-night phone calls, about a security guard paid in cash to forget he saw the governor leave the ball. When Renee requested an official interview with Henry Whitmore, the threats began. Anonymous calls in the middle of the night. A black SUV following her home. One evening, she returned to her apartment to find the door unlocked, her files scattered, her laptop gone. Vincent was sending a message. Mara begged her to stop. Renee, they could kill you. But Renee only shook her head. If I stop, they win. And if they win, they'll keep doing it. To someone else's kid. The final blow came when Renee obtained the valet's signed statement and the untouched video footage. Together, they were irrefutable. She leaked them, not to her superiors, who could be bought, but directly to a trusted journalist at the largest paper in the state. The morning the story broke, it exploded across every screen and news feed. Governor Whitmore linked to fatal hit and run. By noon, Henry was in custody. Vincent, too. The charges: vehicular manslaughter, obstruction of justice, conspiracy. At the courthouse steps, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. Renee stood beside Mara, watching as the governor was led away in handcuffs, his once perfect hair plastered to his head in the drizzle. "You did it," Mara whispered, her voice trembling with relief. Renee gave a small, tired smile. "We did it. And now they know, no one is untouchable." As the police van door slammed shut, Henry's eyes flicked toward Renee. She didn't flinch. The rain began to fall again, washing the city clean, but this time, it wasn't trying to hide anything.